my little lovelies. I'm so glad that you're back again for this second part of this series, because like I said yesterday, we're going to be talking about character problems, and that is one of the things that can make or break your story. It can kill a story dead if you do not have fantastic, exciting, relatable characters. As I said yesterday, all of these mistakes that I'm mentioning here are based on long experience, trial and error from me, wisdom from writing classes and from other readers and writers themselves. It is not something that I've plucked out of thin air. I'm not saying them to make you feel bad or to make myself out to be better than I am or anything like that. All I'm telling you is that I am a writer that has dealt with these problems and has found a way of fighting them, because they creep in when you least expect it. If you didn't catch the first video talking about story structure, then feel free to go back and check it out later. So today we're going to be talking about character problems. I've covered in another video how to create believable characters, but today I'm actually going to focus on the mistakes that you make in the way that they're actually written, and how those mistakes can look very, very amateurish with your writing. First point is bland characters. Now, bland characters is something that I hear about a lot. Some writers seem to equate secondary characters with bland. Not so. Secondary characters should be just as alive and fully formed as your main characters, especially if, like me, you're creating an entire world within your series and that you have the intention of writing a series of books. So all of your secondary characters could end up being your main characters in other books, and they're not just secondary characters to you, they're actually part of your world, and they deserve as much time and attention and care as any other. When I mean bland secondary characters, I mean anyone that is within your book. I'm talking bland friends, bland love interests, bosses, family. All of that is a thing too. You might think that just because they're an important character and they're important to your main character, they're not bland at all, but believe me, they could be coming off that way. It's very easy for that to happen. Many novice writers focus so much on their protagonist, the one that the story revolves around, that they forget to flesh out the rest of the cast, and that just makes it look like you couldn't give a shit about the rest of your story. You're putting characters there for no real reason. So imagine your book is a movie. If the main character was the star, say a big name celebrity with all the lines and an awesome wardrobe, but everybody else is unknowns who barely got any action and no lines, it would be boring as hell. Okay, your book will be the same. Without you even meaning for it to be, your book will end up turning into a B movie, and we do not want that, do we? Along with bland characters comes characters who lack purpose. They're either just there to bulk out the background, to make your character look popular and loved, or just as filler. This can happen in a number of ways. For example, you've got the random best friend that follows the protagonist around like a little lost puppy. You've got the boyfriend or girlfriend that seems to have nothing to do but fawn over the main character and make them look good. You got the kind of enemy that sort of like throws the odd nasty comment at your protagonist or trips them up in the corridor, but never actually advances past that. Or the neighbour that yells at your main character over the back fence for absolutely no reason and nothing ever comes of it. They're filler. They're not needed. You're trying to create conflict and action and relationships where there's nothing there, unless you make it have something there. I see characters as fitting into certain levels. Okay, let me explain my character criteria to you. You've got your mains, so that includes your protagonist, so obviously the person that the book focuses on, and those who really feature heavily in the story, so maybe a love interest, a best friend, or a child. Secondary characters, so characters that are less important than your mains, but who still need more purpose, more details, and more personality than our next level ones, which is background characters. Secondaries are those that have a place in the story and a purpose and interact more with your main characters. background characters are the ones that are quite literally in the background. So they don't need huge histories or page time or anything, but again, they do actually need a reason to be there. Again, think of your story as a movie. So you got, if the main character's in a bar and the barmaid serves them a drink, they're not just going to then stand there, still as a statue, staring at nothing. That's not what people do. They're going to be bustling around, serving others, they're going to be wiping down the bar, they're going to be cleaning glasses, or, you know, doing something like that. She could then go on to serve a table full of rowdy lads who get a bit handsy as she passes. And the main character then gets up and punches one of the lads. Or the character could notice that this is happening and think that she reminds him of his little sister, which then makes him decide to either go back home, or maybe his sister died and it still affects him. All from a simple background character. So therefore, she has purpose. If you didn't intend to do anything like that, and you didn't actually intend to have a reason for this character to be here, like, say, if you just wanted to show your main character as a brooding, drunken anti-hero sitting in a bar, then just have him sitting there, drinking on his own, and being introspective. That's fine. You don't have to put characters in and use characters and fill the background with people if it's not needed. And lastly, we have what I call the abstract character. This would be the one that isn't an active player in your story. They're never seen, but they're referenced and used in some way. So say your main character became a police officer because someone shot his father in a store robbery and they were never caught. Okay? Your character's motivation is the father. It's the lack of conviction and the killer going free. The father was the man that they always looked up to and aspired to be like, and they frequently recall things about him, and everyone says how much your character looks like his father. The father is an important character, but he's an abstract one. That doesn't mean that they don't need history, and that doesn't mean they don't need backstory or purpose. You're just never going to see it. Characters who lack story goals is another thing that was mentioned to me a lot. This basically means when you have a protagonist or a main character that seems to lack any kind of goal or motivational force. Your character has to have something that they are working towards, something that motivates them. This could be a number of things, such as something emotional, so like family, friends, sexual intimacy, that sort of thing. Something to do with them as a person, so it could be self-esteem, lack of confidence, personal achievement, career goal, something related to their safety or the safety of others around them, financial security, health issues, even the safety of the home. Okay. These goals can come in many forms. So, for example, the risk of losing their home, lack of confidence that stops them from doing anything they aren't sure about, so now they have to push themselves to take risks. Someone at work is actively plotting against them and they must be stopped. The goal of your story is as important as the story itself. So you need characters that have got a goal, that have got a reason for being. Now I'm just going to touch on weak character voices, as I intend to cover this in another video on dialogue. So I'm not going to go into massive big things about it. But a lack of clear and distinctive character voice can have a massive impact on your novel. If all your characters sound the same, or even sound like your author's voice, this results in a story that has a lack of flow and depth, not to mention being harder to follow and to relate to the characters themselves. This is because you just cannot distinguish between one or the other. So you might not be able to form, as a reader, you might not be able to form a clear picture in your head of what's going on in the story because you can't differentiate between which character and who's talking and who's doing something. It's a muddle. It's all a big old blur in there. And you don't want that. Characters are the driving force of your story, and if it's hard to tell them apart, your readers will quickly lose interest. You know, finding it hard to connect to them is the biggest turn off for a reader, not connecting. And lastly, character reactions. Overreactive characters and underreactive characters are a surefire way to show yourself off as a novice writer. Having a character that never reacts is boring, not strong and indifferent as you might be trying to portray them. Having one that overreacts all the time can be exhausting and annoying to read. What you need is a good balance between the two. So conflict between characters is often used within a story. In fact, it's a very important part of it. Everywhere in life we have conflict and confrontation. We can't avoid it, no matter how much we try. It's a part of life. So why should it be any different for your characters? You know, they're supposed to be representing real people. The problem occurs when there's either too much or too little of it. Conflict between characters is often a driving force for a novel, but it still has to be realistic. A common theme of many romance novels is to have two characters that seem to hate each other, so they're constantly arguing or falling out of each other, who then end up admitting that they only did this because they liked each other and they didn't know how to act. Okay, I get that. Sexual tension could be a pain in the backside at times, but honestly, that isn't that true to life, is it? Not really. I mean, would you get into a relationship with someone that you hated? With someone that you couldn't agree on with anything, or someone that was nasty to you, or just plain mean all the time? No. I mean, honestly, if you said yes to any of this, then I'm sorry, but you're going to have problems, because that is not a healthy relationship. It's just not. Now, I understand that in some books this can work. In my third book, the two main characters were complete opposites of each other. And if they hadn't have had to work together, they never would have managed to get to know each other enough to realise that they weren't all that different after all. They argued, they had moments of hating each other, but that was all broken up with times of laughing together and seeing the lighter side of each other and realising they both had reasons for acting the way that they did. It was resolved in a way that worked for everybody. Characters that are constantly getting into conflict with each other and everyone around them quickly become annoying. This type of character is often argumentative, opinionated, aggressive, egotistical, overconfident and cocky. And honestly, do you like that type of person? I mean, if you do, that's fine. But I don't. They're annoying to be around, they're impossible to work with, and they're just hard work in general. When your entire book is full of conflict, petty arguments and shit, all caused by your main character, well, that just makes him an arsehole, quite honestly. I mean, that's cool if that's what you were going for, but most of the time it's not, so that's something you need to be aware of. But then we can swing the other way with lack of conflict, which just makes the book boring to read. Nothing ever goes wrong. Nothing is ever hard. Nothing is ever working against your characters. In short, it's got no substance to it whatsoever. Conflict does not just mean physical or verbal conflict. It can take the form of anything that actually slows down or tries to stop your protagonist from reaching their goal. So in the book world, we call this dramatic conflict, because any kind of drama is included in this. There's a fine line between too little and too much. But if you follow a basic story formula, it should be easy enough to notice when you need it, when the pace of your story is dropping, or when it's running too fast, and when it needs to hit the brakes. So that's all I've got for today. Please pop back tomorrow where we'll be chatting about common mistakes with point of view. Until then, blessed be and happy writing.